I'm wondering if I should speak at all, Eric.
It's all downhill from here.
Yeah,
Fortunately, a standing ovation does not cut into our 9 minutes allotted here. Bill, you recently wrote a book called Showing Up for Life, which really described and encapsulated a life philosophy for you, both in your public and private lives. What was that book about? What was that message?
well, it's stolen from our old friend Woody Allen, who is famous for the saying, 80% of life is showing up. But, there's a sort of grain of truth in it. I think of things like what you said, I'm sure, this morning to some colleague when you said, geez, we sold the place out all day. Or up at the Sam Saturday University thing when the officials of SAM get together and say, geez, we're filling up this room every Saturday morning. Or, on the other hand, the occasional situation where somebody says, gosh, we had 30 people coming and only 10 showed up. So, it's a primary opening function is just showing up and being there. Now, it obviously frequently leads to other things like writing a check or joining a committee or something of that kind. But, I think Mr. Allen or whoever wrote that for him hit on a piece of wisdom, and I'm happy to have subscribed to it on my little book.
Well, you subscribed to it and you've lived it, and this idea that showing up initially leads to other things, it leads to a broader view of how we're all connected in the ways in which we owe one another something. And I know this is something that is really front of mind for you right now in the work that you're doing in the community around the ways in which our public policy structure and our taxes in particular in the state are not allowing everybody to show up in the same way and not encouraging us to show up for each other. Can you tell us a bit about what you're working on now?
Sure. I'm going to talk for a couple of minutes about I-1098. I love that. I'm not going to be terribly partisan about it. There are some ingredients of the I-1098 situation which are kind of fundamentals about which I think I'm principally going to speak. One of them is the treatment we're giving public education in our own state, and the other is the business of funding and who should be paying for the kinds of things that our society really needs. First of all, on the subject of the treatment, we start out in this state with this constitutional provision that says that it's the paramount duty of the state to provide amply for the education of the children who reside here. And that's not just an empty phrase, because we have now a series of court cases, including one just a month or two ago, which held precisely that the state was not in compliance with that provision of the Constitution. That's a serious matter, and it's in an appellate court now, but it isn't going to go away because the finding the judge made is so clearly accurate that we're absolutely going to have to do something. And in keeping with that, our state legislature has already adopted a couple of laws describing what public education should be in this state without any ability, of course, to fund it in these days, being what they are. So they've legislated for what they think of as a fuller, better basic education for our children. Things like more hours of school, and things like instead of 20 credits to graduate from high school, you have to have 24 credits to graduate from high school. And the things of which I think you all are very aware, I'm very conscious of it through my connection with the university, is that just the really near to disastrous diminishing of the support of our four-year schools and the incredible increase in tuition. As I think you probably all know, we've crossed the lines where state support of four-year universities has gone down and tuition has gone up, and the lines have crossed, and tuition now is a larger piece of the funding of our universities. And then finally, I'm hopeful that there we are. Oh, good, I'm glad I can see it too. This is two graphs which show something about the way our state is treating public education. The one on the left deals with where we stand in the country related to the wealth of the state, the cumulative personal income. And as you can see very quickly, back in 1991 we were 24th, and now in 2006 we've gone down to 46th, and we're still sinking. Now, it's just a question of pride. I don't think there's anybody sitting here who wants to continue that situation. At least I hope there isn't. Then the other graph is perhaps a bit more straightforward, and it's simply the question of how our expenditure for public education is as compared with the rest of the states in the Union. As you can see, with the same calendars, we've gone from 17th back in the early 90s, currently to 37th in terms of the funding that we provide for the education of our children in accordance with the language of the Constitution. So we have to fix that, it seems to me. I think we would like to look with pride on our public education system, that we have one which is, an example of how you can do it, of a rigorous, vital contribution to the lives of our children, and if I may go on and be a little bit ambitious, to the survival and progress of this little civilization up here in the northwest corner of the United States.
Now, at the same time that you've laid out these stark facts of disinvestment, there's the other side of the equation as well, which is the manifest unfairness of our tax structure itself. And I know that's something that with 1098 you're working on very directly. Would you say a word about what you're doing there and the perspective on things?
I'm going to have to say a very quick word. I wish those charts that you're seeing now, or about to see, there they go.
Whistle and it will come.
Okay. This is a picture of the contribution of income that people make to the support of the state and local governments. And it's got 4 states. The bars are from the left, the lowest 20% of income, the next 20%, the middle 20%, the next 20%, and then the 3 at the end represent a breakdown of the highest 20%, with the next 15, the next 4, and finally the last and highest 1% of income. And those internal bars are, the dark red one is sales, the green one is property, and the blue one is income taxes. And the light blue stack is the total of those 3. And it's really quite interesting, of course, that in Oregon, California, and Idaho, you can see it's somewhat proportional. It's not as proportional as you might like it to be. But for heaven's sake, look at Washington. 17% of that lowest quintile's income is spent on state support. And in the other cases, that big first bar is 10 or 11%. And as compared with the far right-hand bar, which represents our highest paid 1%, they contribute 2.6% of their income to the support of the state and local government. And I now return to my very current selfish interest to say that that illustrates why there's nothing wrong with imposing this very high-level income tax that we're talking about doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.